Please enjoy this feature presentation of the Crooked River Radio Network. This program is rated for all audiences.
The World According to Elmer is sponsored by CrookedRiverRadio.com. Crooked River Radio is an internet radio station that is live 24/7 playing rock and adult contemporary top 40 hits from the 60s through the 90s. You can find us on Live 365, Simple Radio, Roku, Radio Garden, and even Alexa, as well as our website. Come on and join us on the Crooked River. Welcome aboard.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome.
We're headed for the World According to Elmer, with hosts Jerry Sorensen and Pat Morrow. Don't worry, you'll enjoy it there.
An auspicious start.
Better buckle in and enjoy the ride. Here come our hosts now.
Now you can go.
Finally, we're here. Woohoo!
I know
I knew
you're
it would
anxious.
happen sooner or later. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the World According to Elmer. I'm Jerry Sorensen, KG8RRY, and that other voice that you're hearing in the background talking about our auspicious start this evening to the program is our Elmer, Mr. Pat Morrow, and he is N8 OQP. Pat, how has your week been? Have you had a good week?
Not doing too bad. How about yourself? I got to find you here.
I can't complain. It's been a beautiful week weather-wise. Been on the bands. The bands have been up and down. To give you an example, last night the bands were fantastic, Pat. Talked all over the world, and very low noise last night. And I was on a net here a little bit ago at 4 o'clock. So this is the very next day, and it was out of control. Noise, like I have not heard noise in a while. So it is one of those things, and it varies from day to day and week to week. And it is what it is. It's called propagation.
Let me tell you the idea we had last night.
Okay.
Of course, you know I run the Cuyahoga Falls Amateur Radio Club's repeater net once a month, and then I run this HF Explorer net that we've got. Well, somebody had the idea at field day to take, and since 10 meters never really gets played with, up above
not too much.
Up above 28,500, we thought, well, what the heck? We can go play with that a little bit. So after our net last night, we actually got on 29,585.
Oh, you're up in the FMers like it up there.
Yeah, it was. We went to 29,585 FM, and
there you go.
It was the quality was surprising. It sounded as good, if not better, than a 2-meter repeater.
Let me tell you a story. Every Sunday night down here in Stark County, we have a CW net, and we all meet at 3599.5. So we use 80 meters for CW, and that is something that most people don't do. And 10-meter FM kind of fits into that same category to me. Plus, we have another net down here that is a 6-meter net that is AM mode. Well, 6-meter AM, 29 megahertz FM, 80 meters CW, local nets. You know, this is all out of the ordinary, but it's all very fun.
It was quite a bit of fun last night just to play around. I had 9 people check in. That's how much people wanted to play with it.
And this is impromptu.
I didn't have that on the regular net.
Well, there you go. You know, you if you have the prospect of being on 6 meters or 10 meters, you should check it out. And the other thing is, watch your band conditions, guys. A lot of times, like the other night when we had the ARRL had that VHF contest. I forget what night that was. It was about 2 weeks ago. But the band was completely open that night on 6 meters. And I suspect it's open more than we all think as operators that it is, because we never visit. We're out of the habit now, like Pat just said, of going.
I've kind of thought that myself a few times.
So how many times is 10 meters open? And you and I just don't know it because we never appear on 10 meters, right?
That's exactly right. It's hard to tell.
But you know what? Give it another year and a half when we're deep into the solar cycle and we're doing those. You know what? We have a lot of new listeners. Speaking of the solar cycle and speaking of propagation, let's wrap this all together. Just take a few moments, Pat, and tell us the story of the Florida Ohio CB connection back in the day.
Oh, this was something else.
It's a great story.
I left Ohio on vacation. I lived, at that time, I lived in Stowe. And of course, I went down 77 all the way to, cuts over to 270 or 277, I think it is, and then it goes into 95. And I had a friend of mine up here. He says, we should be able to talk all the way down there. Yeah, right. Sure.
Now this is on CB.
This is on CB. It's about 19.
So we're not talking a kilowatt or a kilowatt and a half. We're talking 4 watts input.
We're talking 15 because it was sideband.
Oh, sideband. Oh, you were on the big wattage.
I had a President Jackson and a fiberglass 102-inch fiberglass whip. No spring. No spring. No
spring.
I never sprung for the spring. Say that 3 times real fast.
That is great.
And then we took he says, we ought to be able to talk all the way down there. Well, yeah, right, sure, whatever. So he says, when you get on the south side of Jacksonville, start calling for me, and let's see if you can hear me. So I got traveling that direction, and I used to drive overnight. It was about 11:30 in the morning when we got through there, and so I picked up the microphone. How about it, Gary? You up there? And Gary came back, and as loud as you and I are talking.
That is great.
And I'm like, whoa! I drove clear into from about 10 miles. You know where the I don't know if you've ever been through that area, but there's a thing that goes around Jacksonville, a route. I had, and then you go, the regular 95 goes right through Jacksonville, and that's the way I went. I couldn't stand that end around thing.
Oh, the bypass?
Yeah, the bypass. I couldn't stand that thing, so I quit taking it. Because there was more construction on it than there was on 95, and that was hard to believe.
Which is hard to believe, but apparently that's their state flower also.
But I talked to him all the way from about 10 miles south of Jacksonville, clear into my mother's in Orlando. That was about a 2.5 hour trip.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's just like you and I are talking. Okay, that's not the best part. The best part was I went to Kennedy Space Center. I talked to him from my mother's house all the way over to there. I left the next couple of days. I was all over Orlando. I talked to him then. Every time I'd get in the car, I'd pick up the microphone and see if he was there. Then I went to Busch Gardens. We went to Busch Gardens because that was our first time over there. And I talked to him clear pretty much all over all the way over to Busch Gardens, which was about a 95-mile drive.
Right, on 4 watts.
And
excuse me, you were sidebound on 15 watts.
And then from there, when we got done with the park, I got in the car, and my in-laws had met us over there. They lived up in Inverness, which is about an hour and a half north. I drove all the way up to Inverness talking to him.
That's incredible.
And then for all of that time, this was probably between 6 and 9 o'clock at night normally. Mm-hmm. And the best part of this whole story was when I pulled out of Orlando that time, was at 5:30 in the afternoon. I stopped and got ice and stuff for the trip back up. I started talking to him, and right after I got the ice, and I drove 4 miles into Georgia before I lost him.
That's amazing. What a great story.
And had this been earlier in the day, I would have been able to talk to him halfway home. I'm pretty much convinced of that.
Propagation.
And sunspots.
You can have all the wattage in the world. I was talking to a young man the other day in Southern Ohio, and he had put something up on social media on a certain Facebook, on Facebook. And at any rate, he said, I don't understand. Here I am on 10 meters, and I'm running a kilowatt, and I can't get anybody to answer me. And, I sent him an email back or a post back, and I said, hey, you can have as many watts as you want. But if the band isn't open, the band isn't open. Now, conversely, if the band is open, really there's nothing you can do to limit your success. You're going to find that you make amazing calls. And so all of that is out of our control. But that just is what it is, as my buddy Pat, N8OQP, would say.
Well, shortly
Thank you
after
for sharing
that.
That's awesome.
Shortly after that is when I got into the ham radio thing.
You decided if that was good, ham radio was better, huh?
The ham radio thing actually was a dare. I was told a dare, yes. I don't know if I've told you this story before or not.
No, this is the first time I've heard about this dare.
This same friend that had talked to me all over Florida comes in my house one afternoon or one evening. It's about the middle of March, and he says, I just read where on April 1st, the FCC is going to drop the code requirements. And he says, I'm going to study to be a ham. He says, I've been waiting for him to drop that code thing. And he says, he says, I'd ask you if you wanted to join me, but no, he says, you're working all the time and you got a family.
Here we go.
There ain't no way in hell you'll ever get your license.
Got that carrot out there now. You're just hanging that carrot right out there. That's
exactly what it was, Jer.
Right.
And I said, okay. He got his license about
challenge on.
He was one of the first to go after the no code thing. I went 2 weeks later. I got my I passed the tech test on April 15th, and May 31st my license was issued, and I got it.
That's incredible.
I actually got it the next day. So
now this was called it was no code. Was it technicians?
No code tech, yeah.
Okay, so it was at the beginning of the technician's license. Is that right, or am I incorrect?
There was a technician license for a long time, but they required code. You had to pass 5 words of code, which I didn't. I couldn't. I just couldn't hear the stuff.
Couldn't hear it. Well, that was my case for how many years? 30 years, and I tried 3 times. I failed 3 times, and then in my later life, at 62 years of age, I learned code. Go figure.
Yep, and that's
one of these days it may just come to you.
That's what's going to happen with me, because now I've got the
Sure. One of these days the light bulb will go on, and that'll be that.
But it ended up I just couldn't. I almost was able to. I was actually at a 5-word test, and when I went, my daughter was taking her test, and I was nervous for her, and I was, I couldn't really concentrate on hearing this stuff. I'd made the mistake too of listening to the 20-word code first, because they did the 20 words. I think it was 15 and 10 or 15 and 5. I had made the mistake of listening to both of those just to see if I could copy it, and that really screwed me over as far as the 5 words goes. Plus the nervousness. When I started the time that this last time when I was successful, I started listening to 3 words a minute, and I remember that I thought it was going by so fast there was no way that I could keep up. And a few weeks ago, now this has been a year and a half later, 1,000 Qsos later, I heard somebody sending at 5 words a minute, and that was like it would be like having teeth pulled without anesthetic. Yeah. It was just so painful for me. It was so slow, and I remembered how it used to be so fast. Well, when your ear gets accustomed to listening to the faster speeds, it does that. And even in a short time like that, when I was sitting in that class or in that test, and they were doing the other testing, and I'm sitting there and I'm going, oh, I can almost decipher that, and then it come to the 5 words, and I was screwed. There was just no way I was going to get it. I couldn't hear it. But
and you can beat your head against the wall, or the other thing is they've got a lot of things that they did not have in those days. I picked up a couple of cell phone apps where you could learn Morse code and play them as games on your cell phone. So there's some things today that you can learn for tools that we never had back years ago. Time marches on, my friend.
That's about right.
I got some cards that just came to me this week in the mail.
There's no way.
Clear blue. Yeah. This fella right here. Now get this. He was doing a POTA one evening. It was in Missouri, and this gentleman is down in a place. What did he say? It's Republic, Missouri, and he is Kilo 0 Lima Alpha Foxtrot, and nice POTA contact. And he puts here on the bottom, thanks for calling on the late shift. I guess the POTA guys, when they're out in the evening, call that the late shift. And I didn't know, but now I know. Here is W2ITT, Whit. Whit is over in Long Island. How about some Long Island action here? And is he in Long Island? He's in New York. But he is a member of the Long Island CW Club, which is a rather famous CW club, and it's also, by the way, Pat, a great place to learn CW. They have continual, ongoing training sessions on the radio, and I can tell you that from my experience, when you really start to improve as a code operator is when you get on the air, because at that point it's either sink or swim. Last year, I had a chance to talk to this fella over in Indiana on the WW2LST, which is one of the World War II ships. W8AU, Perry Ballinger was the operator over there. This was in the Normandy, this ship in Normandy in the invasion. And now here it is back stateside again. And of course, it's restored. So this year I had a chance to connect up with them again. And here's a copy of that card. A couple more here real quick. How about a trip down to Texas, anybody? I talked to my buddy yesterday in Texas. He lives just outside of Dallas, and he told me it was 108 degrees there, Pat.
Yeah, that's
when it's 108 degrees.
That's actually
I guess all you do
is lives.
You just stay inside and talk on the radio, right? You don't go out, I don't think.
That's about it.
Here's one more. This is Kilo 4 Golf Mike. This is over in Culpeper, Virginia, and I like the fact that he has put the Statue of Liberty. Why do I want to put the word "the" in there? Statue of Liberty here on his card. I think that's very cool. So anyway, 73, George. Thank you very much for that nice QSL card. Keep them coming. By the way, just a word of warning to everybody, or not warning so much as just information. A word of information. In a day or so, I think, or maybe it has already gone into effect, and I missed the date, but at like right about now, postcards go up. Postage just went up by another 4 cents. So it just gets more and more expensive to mail these things. But what a joy when they show up. I love to receive these cards. The only reason I go to the mailbox anymore, Pat, right there.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. Hey, we got a bunch of stuff to talk about tonight, so we probably ought to go ahead and get started. I saw a great video that came in. It's gotten where this guy, he's on not only on YouTube, but he has actually got a reflector now, and there are people who have signed up, myself included, on behalf of the show, to receive these videos from one of our friends, who you will see in a minute. But he was doing some antenna stuff this week, and he was able to get an 18 dB increase out of an antenna.
Oh, cool.
Now that is incredible.
I'm ready for that.
So let's turn things over to Callum. He is the DX commander, and he's going to join us tonight, Pat. You folks are listening to the Crooked River Radio Network. That is Pat R. Elmer, N8OQP. I'm Jerry, KG8RRY, your host, and we'll be back on the other side of this video. So Callum, take it away.
You would have thought that a longer antenna performed better. In fact, I've got... So it's a Wi-Fi antenna. That's very long. That's just not... It's not one wire going up there. There'll be lots of these inside it, all stacked together with coils and little things. That's not quite what I want to talk about tonight, though. What we're going to do is I'm going to explain, from everything I've heard and done over the years, what happens when we make antennas longer and still get a match, okay? Now, look, I'm going to use a piece of software here But when I'm using the software, I'm going to race through it. If you want to go through it slowly, you'll have to hit the pause button and go frame at a time, because I'm just going to go whoosh. Probably, I don't know yet. It depends on how I edit it. So let's two things. We'll do a straight vertical and we'll do a straight dipole. Then we'll take the vertical and we'll make it longer. Then we'll take the dipole and make it longer. Then we'll make the dipole extremely long. And then we're going to get excuse me, I bumped the microphone. Then we're going to get an end fed, and we'll make that extremely long. Just see what happens, because there's some fascinating, if you've got the space, some really kinky things you can do with a bit of rope. No, there's some really interesting things you can do with long wires. All right, very long wires. So I'm just going to quickly make a vertical, let's say for 40 meters, okay? All right, I've made a vertical and I've got an SWR of 1.36. That's probably best. Let's just have a look at the far field plot. If we can picture what this might look like. Okay, so the plot on the left, we're not that interested really. It's looking down plan view. The one on the right is our elevation view, and that will change. If you like, by the sea, it will be a lot. You'll get more gain. I can quickly do that for you. By the sea, 5,000 millisiemens per metre. Start. You can see we get this huge gain really low down. Okay. Anyway, we're not here to do that. What I'm here to do. Let's go back to 50, or is it 5? Average ground, all right? Average ground where you grow your potatoes. Calculate. Right. We're just going to come down 5 degrees off the horizon. Just give us a little baseline on something. 5 degrees says minus 4.7. I'm going to write that down. I'm just going to write that down. Minus 4.7. Just so we don't forget. Dipoles and verticals resonate on every other harmonic, every odd harmonic, whatever, which means you can take 7.2 and you can multiply it by 3, which would be 21.6. Thereabouts. A few things happen. Height above ground mucks that up. But effectively, this will also be resonant on, let's just for the sake of maths do 21.5. It says it's perfect at 21.8. In the real world, that will be actually about 21.55, 21.6. But in terms of software, I'm just going to do 21.8, just to keep the numbers happy, okay? Interesting note here. Do you notice how a 3/4 wave gives us a better match to 50 ohms, if we go right to the bottom here, than a quarter wave? You just get a better match, all right? SWR is 1.08. Just interesting. So the far field plot looks like that. Again, on our average ground, around 16 radials or something. And you can see that our energy is going kind of up at 45 degrees sort of thing, you know. However, if we come down low 5 degrees off the horizon, where before we were having minus 4.7, we've now got, so that was a quarter wave. A 3/4 wave is now minus 3.1. So depending on how you cook the books on a few things, you can get 1 or 2 extra dB with a 3/4 wave. By the way, this would resonate on 3/4 waves, also resonate on 1 1/4. Okay, so we'd have to multiply our 7.2. So I'm going to fire up my calculator. 7 times 3, 4, 5 now. It would be next resonant on 35 megahertz. It would just be interesting on 35-ish. It's going to be 35, back to 36 megahertz. Would be 1 1/4. It says the SWR is a tiny bit wrong here. SWR 30. It says 36.5. Okay, 36.5. Not far out, yeah. Start. And there's the plot at 1 1/4 wavelengths. All right. So you see these lobes have gone way up high. There is a little bit of going down here. It says minus 5 point something, whatever. Not that good. And last one we'll do is we'll just move up get my calculator back out, and let's do 7.2 megahertz times 7. So that'll be 1 3/4. All right. Yeah. 50.4. it says. So that'll be about 51, won't it? Not far off. And by the way,
wow.
It'd be a shame it's not 50.15 because a 40-metre element will give you a tune then on 15 metres and 6. It will tune, you just hit the ATU, but it's about, normally, because I've tried this, it's about a 2-to-1 SWR. It's just a bit high. Anyway, I'm waffling. Far field plot. The reason why it would be really cool is at 1 1/4, you start getting these big lobes off here, which is quite usual between 20 degrees off the horizon and, a couple of degrees off the horizon. If we look at our 5-degree business, which was there, it says 0.6. So very interesting. We started off at minus 4.7, minus 3.1. 1 1/4 wasn't very good. This is 1 3/4. Anyway, so that's the vertical. What happens if we do the same thing with a dipole? So let me just shut up a minute and I'll draw a dipole.
I've got to get some of this.
So I've just drawn a dipole. It's flat at the moment. It's just sitting on the ground. But we'll raise it up. I mean, what sort of height? You guess what number? Sort of 25 feet. I don't know. What's that? About 8 metres, something like that. Give or take. 7.2. We're starting on a 40-metre band again. Do we fix the error of the... It says it's resonant at 7.1. All right, well, we'll just keep the numbers happy. 7 megahertz. SWR is 1.22. All right, so we're interested in these far-field plots again, aren't we? So, just an interesting plot. How do you read this? It looks like a bubble of RF, by the way, and if it's sort of 500 miles away, that's going to be about 35 degrees off the horizon, and we will see at 35 degrees off the horizon, off one end, we're getting 4.8 bananas, and off here we're getting 0.6. So north-south or east-west, there's about 5 or 6 dB. Barely perceptibly noticeable on an S9 signal. One will be S8, one will be S9. All right, but it looks fine. We can press a really cool button here, actually, and just see. I'll zoom it in a bit, and we can just see what it looks like. Oh, yes, very nice. Bubble of RF. So I wouldn't be too worried about its north, south, east, west, and whatever, because a low-to-the-ground dipole on 40 metres basically gives most of your gain going straight up in the air. Okay?
That's a good regional coverage.
If you just want to talk to your mates a couple hundred miles away, that will work a treat. Then we go up to 15 metres again. Let's see what happens again. Remember, we're going to go very long in a minute. So we'll go to 21.3-ish. I don't know where this is resonant at. Okay, so we'll go to 15 metres. That will be resonant actually about 21.8. We'll see. SWR 2.281. Not bad. Because we've got an impedance here, I can see it. It says 111 ohms. But whatever. Let's go to the far field plot. So we've got this weird-looking clover leaf going on. Well, that's sort of a 6-leaf clover, I think. We're more interested in DX on 15 metres, and that will be probably around about the 5 degrees mark. So let's have a look over there. It's minus 0.9, minus 0.4. 0.8 there, we've got some dips going on. So we get this funny thing, and if we fire this thing up here so you can see what it's doing, it's quite an interesting pattern. So there's a 3/4 wave. So if you had like balance line into big long doublet, what's going to happen? Well, let's go even higher up. If you remember, the next one was about 36.5, something like that. So that would be a 1 1/4 wavelengths. SWR is not bad, so that'll do fine. What happens now? We get more of these fingers. So we've got our antenna is actually running on this plot north-south, and we can see we're starting to get these north-south lobes here. We'll go 5 degrees off the horizon. Where is the DX? Very healthy DX. Very healthy indeed in 4 directions. Okay?
Yes.
And then I seem to remember we go 1 3/4, which was 51, 52-ish, megahertz. Let me just check where the SWR is correct there. 51.1. There we are. 51.1. We'll just have a look at what the far field plot looks like there. So this is maybe an 80-metre doublet on roughly the 10-metre band. There we are. So these fingers, in my opinion, are starting to come closer together. But again, we'd be using this, let's say, on 6 metres or 10 metres if it was twice as long for the 80-metre band. Just reduce everything, roughly 5 degrees off the horizon. Yeah, we're getting these very healthy lobes here. What does that look like in 3D, as a matter of interest? I don't know if you can see that very well. Just fascinating, really, isn't it? So this is an antenna that's basically too long, all right? So we've done the dipole, we've done the vertical, and we've made them a bit longer. And what we can do is we're now going to make a very long antenna. So I had, now, Rowley ZL1BQD, in his previous QTH, previous location, he's in New Zealand, he noticed there was a very long telephone wire going for, I don't know, a couple of miles or something. Rowley might come on and leave a comment, and I'll pin it to the top and he'll tell us more about it there. But he did have this very long antenna. Well, he converted it because it wasn't connected to anything. So he connected it, I don't know, probably with some sort of like a 64-to-1 transformer. I don't know what he did. But basically he made this very long end fed. And he was saying he could hear and have two-way communications with stations like in America and stuff, which his friends didn't believe he was actually talking to them. But he was getting a healthy signal, and it was a very long, like a 2-mile thing. I spoke to a guy on 80 metres a couple of years ago, and he had, I think it was 2 kilometres of wire, not very high off the ground, just through the trees, with some big, tensioning elastic things. He genuinely did, and he told me that he could talk to this guy in Canada every night of the week on 80 metres. So he gave me all the dimensions. I modelled it, but I couldn't. On Qsos, his email was bounced or something, so he never got my results. But I will just do this for you. So we'll make an incredibly long antenna. So let me shut up, and I'll do that. Okay. So this is X and Y. I've made this along the X left-right, east-west axis. It's 2,000 metres, one leg, and 2,000 metres, another leg. Let's go to 80 metres. Now, you could walk a mile that way and a mile that way and start chopping bits and tune it for a coax, However, easiest way of running this would be some balance line to a big fat tuner, in my opinion. But whatever, okay? Let's just hit the start button and see what happens. Might take a while because it's an enormous... Even though I've got a super fast machine, there's a lot of calculations. Let me shut up and let's run this calculation. Okay, we're done. So, yeah, we'd need to trim it. We've got a big high SWR. And I've put this at 8 metres high. So, but assuming we could get a tune, and you could use your big fat tuner or whatever else, let's see what this does. Well, this is why he was talking to the guy...
look at that
wherever it was. Well, these
that's
look
a
very,
great
very high
signal.
off the ground. Let's just do this at 5 degrees.
21 dB.
Okay, so it splits in two. We've got a super high gain there, 16.4 dBi, which is an enormous amount of power. Put your 100 watts in there, you'd soon know it. In fact, we could do that now. Let's just quickly do 16. So you've got 100 watts. If we had 100 watts, we've got 16 dBi, so 1,000 watts, 10 dB is equivalent to 1,000 watts, 13 dBi is equivalent to 2,000 watts, and 16 dBi equivalent to 4. Okay, so, yeah. Yeah, 16 is a lot.
4,000 watts of effective radiated power.
It's a lot. So if you've got a 0 dB
out of
gain
an IC
antenna, fairly low to the ground horizon, fairly low to the ground dipole, 8 metres, versus this guy, your 100 watts is the same as his 4,000 watts in that direction, which is probably the only reason he could speak to, Quebec or something. it might have been lucky. That could have been Florida from us, because they're slightly different angles. Fascinating. Now, we've all got an end fed knocking around, haven't we? A little end fed. So let's just quickly model a really long end fed before I go.
That's just good stuff, man.
This would be a very long, low to the ground, end fed, inverted L. Okay, for some reason I can't get a match. Let's ignore the match. All right, I'm not actually that interested in the match. I mean, I've got 19 to 1 SWR here. I could probably get a better match.
19.4.
If I hit this button here, somewhere it's going to be resonant. I just don't know where. Yeah, it is further up. So we would have to go out and cut bits off and add bits, whatever else. It doesn't matter, okay? I'm just going to say on top band, 1.9-ish megahertz. What does the far field plot look like on a very long whole wavelength? Well, it looks like this. That's fine. So, interesting, isn't it? So let's go up, let's miss 80, because I just think we're going to get a couple of more lobes, but let's go up to 7.2, whatever, megahertz, and have a look at that, and look at the far field plot. So we can see we've got more of these coming up now. Elevation 5 degrees, any DX potential? Oh, there is a little bit. So we're, from there to there, which is a nice big spread, we're averaging 0, okay? If you remember, our quarter wave gave us minus 4.7. So that's quite nice. There it is. What about on 20 metres? 14.3. 14.3. It might take a bit of a while. Far field plots. We can see in the direction of the L.
Oh, wow.
We've got at 5 degrees off the horizon, a couple of little lobes here, look. Nice. It's about 10 dB more than a vertical, look. Very good indeed. And, well, what happens then if we make it super long? Okay, that's going minus 16, so minus 320 metres of wire.
Double
what
the
the hell would happen? Okay, far field plot, please. Oh, fascinating. Fascinating. 5 degrees. Look at this. I'm looking at these gain figures.
Yeah, 9.4.
So there we are. Very long antenna. It's quite interesting. If you've got the space or a fence line with a neighbour, try a long end fed. You might be surprised. Who knows? I'm going to give it a go. All right. So stick with the program. If you follow this channel, then within a month or so, we're going to put a big long end fed and see if we can get a little bit more gain to the US on 40 metres, particularly on receive. Might be nice, mightn't it? So enjoy your radio. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Okay, now he just proved beyond a shadow of a doubt what you said or have always said all along, much less earlier. 100 watts in a wire, you can talk the world. Well, if you play your wire correctly and you set it up right, your 100 watts can become 4 kilowatts just because of the antenna. And that shoots the argument all to heck about what it is in your station that most matters. The people will argue all day long with you, Pat, about, well, it's your radio. You've just got to have the best radio that they make. If you've got the great radio, it doesn't matter what antenna you put on it. It's all good. Or you get the guy that comes on and he says, well, it's the amp. It's all in the amp that you buy. You want to get this, you want to get that. Okay, fine. Radios are good and the amps are good. Amps are fun. And I have an amp and I use it a lot. But at the end of the day, those things are not near so important to the ham radio operator. And if you're new, listen, this is important as your antenna. But yet when we go to DX Engineering or we go to Ham Radio Outlet or any of those places and we're buying our first gear for our very first station, what does the new amateur do? He spends 90% of his money on the radio. And then he starts with that 10%, he starts breaking it down. So he's got to get a tuner. He's got to get some jumpers. He's got to buy coax, and wire is not cheap, especially not good wire. It's not cheap. And so all of a sudden he's got a few bucks left and he decides what he's going to get for his antenna. When he should have built his station, Pat, exactly the opposite.
Yep.
Start with the antenna first.
Spend twice the money on the antenna as you do the radio. And you'll be
twice,
fine.
You say twice the amount of money on the antenna as opposed to the radio?
That's a good rule of thumb, yeah. You can the thing that they're if you looked at that those graphs that he was making, the thing that you're not taking into account there is that is 100 watts applied at the antenna.
Yes.
You have, if you're using RG58 or some crap like that, you're not going to get that to that antenna.
No.
Where you may get 100 watts out of the back of that radio, but by the time it gets to that antenna, it could be 1 or 2 watts.
In some cases, that's true, especially as you go higher. As you go higher on the bands, your efficiency decreases. You get up into the VHF, and then we won't even talk UHF. But up into the VHF range, you're putting crappy coax on the back of your radio. This is a false sense of economy because basically you're going to have an underperforming station.
The best thing that you can do is spend a decent amount of money on not only the antenna, but the coax to get to the antenna.
Yes.
If you're using lossy antenna or lossy coax, you're not going to do very well. That's what I've actually switched quite a bit of my stuff out. I was running RG8 there for a long time. I've switched to, I think it's 173 or something. It's coax that's made for the bands I want to talk. 99.
Okay, and so you did that intelligently.
I run 9913 from any of the UHF, VHF stuff. That's because I want, if I was to run RG8, I wouldn't get anything in the antenna. There's a loss between here and
here's the thing.
On 50 feet or
people
whatever.
People use the RG8, I think, because they feel like they can get away with it on HF. But here's the thing, like my vertical sets 100, my most outward vertical sets 100 feet from the house. Well, if I put RG8 on that, like Pat just said, I'm not going to have any power out at the antennas. So what I did is I invested in a better coax, the same thing that Pat is talking about. I put LMR 400 on mine, which is not very lossy at all. It delivers most of the power to the antenna. But pay attention to what Pat said, everybody. I mean, the money should be going on your antenna, and it should be going on your coax. And really, the radio doesn't really matter so much as all the other. You could either be using 100 watts on your radio with a crappy antenna, and maybe sending less than 100 watts, as Pat said, because of some corners that you cut in some other areas, or you could be using an efficient antenna system, and you could be, as he said, did you see the video we just watched? I mean, 4,000 watts of effective radiated power out of 100 watts. That's pretty incredible, and that shows you the difference that a proper antenna can make. That's good stuff.
It's like my buddy Anthony says, antenna, and a little bit of radio.
Well, he's the guy. How many QRP contacts has he made in his career?
Close to 90,000.
90,000. Yeah, that's a few. That's a few QSOs, guys.
We had a guy.
I hope for the sake of his budget, he's got EQSL.
We were running a decent antenna at field day and got the 40 meter station got over 1,000 contacts. And in fact, we were at 1150, and one guy did,
and that was in 24 hours.
One guy did 1,009 of them.
That guy's a beast.
Yep, he was. And
That's
he had been up since 8:30 the morning before. I felt so sorry for him.
Yeah.
When he come out of that shack, his eyes were about that big around, and he says, "I'm not sure where I'm even at." Well, you ought to go home, Jim. Maybe I ought to go home.
Yeah. Did somebody take him home? That's what I want to know. And what did you tell his poor wife?
Oh, he told me he slept from off and on for pretty much the time he got home, clear into Monday morning.
There you
and
go. It was a great field day.
And we didn't really need him there to help tear down or anything like that because we had quite a bit of help this year. So
that's good.
I took it on my own authority to send him home. He was done.
He was toast.
I wouldn't have wanted to have been him. And
he had gone QRT. He he had closed the station, but the eyes were still open.
That's right. There was not another QSO to be had.
Not another QSO in him. There you go. You're listening to The World According to Elmer on the Crooked River. That's Pat, N80QP, our Elmer, and I'm Jerry, KG8RRY. I think I found a build this week, Pat, that you and I could actually put together.
Oh, cool. I'm ready.
This is a great little radio. I'm going to have to invest in this kit. This kit is about $200, which is cheap for ham radio gear. And it is pretty amazing, a pretty amazing little radio. And so I guess this is a build that you can actually do with a screwdriver and a pair of pliers. And so I can't wait to see, how this is going to turn out. No soldering is involved in this, I don't think. So let's see if it lives up to the billing here. But this is our little Indian. It's from India, a QRP transmitter.
Which one did you want to run? There's two of them here.
Let's just start with
there's a building
what
one,
are the
and then
titles,
there's easy
Pat?
to build. Easy to build is number one, and the buildings.
Yeah, let's go with easy to build.
Okay, we'll do that. You're listening to the.
We'll be back, guys, after this video.
You're listening to the. I want to say radioactive, but it's not. Jeez. That's what happens on live radio when you do a bunch of... I don't know where I'm at most of the time anyway. You're listening to The World According to Elmer on Crooked River Radio. See you in a minute.
Crooked River, baby.
Hey guys, it's Walt, K4OGO. I just built the absolute easiest HF transceiver kit there is to build. It is the Micro BitX version 6 from hfsignals.com. This video is not going to be a how to build it, how-to video. You know what I like to do? I like to put things together, get them going, and see how they work on the air. So I'm going to give a quick rundown on this, and then we're going to see if we can get on the air with it. Stick around.
Music.
This Micro BitX version 6 kit, if you buy the complete kit, it comes from hfsignals.com. About $209 plus shipping from India. Little secret, I got mine from Gigaparts in 2 days with free shipping. So if you're an American in the United States and you're looking to purchase this thing, check out Gigaparts as well. This thing comes nicely boxed, and everything is together. It's basically a snap-together model. If you remember when you were a kid, the models that you had to paint, cut, glue, and everything, the hard skill models, well, this is like one of these when you were a kid. The level 1 snap-together models, that's what this is. It's simple. The board is already... all the soldering's done, the board's together. Basically what you're doing is snapping together and wiring. It's a real easy kit to build. And I'd highly recommend it for anyone, especially a new ham, because what this thing can do, it can be modified. And I mean really modified. There's a lot of mods you can do it. So you could build this and get to the soldering part later when you modify and add things. There's a great group. I'll put a link in the description of a group that's got a lot of online resources for mods and updates and things. And it's a really cool thing to do. I put this together. I mean, it was nice. I used I used needle nose pliers and a screwdriver. That was it. It was so simple to put together. Well, it's together. I've got it built, and now I'm going to cut it on for the first time and try to make a QSO with it. One of the cool things about it is it says that it's aligned and ready to go. You don't need to do any alignment to it. Once it's together, cut it on and go at it. If you should have an issue and need alignment, there's also a website from the builder. I'll put that in the link, not just the website, a YouTube channel from the builder. I'll put a link to that in the description where he gives you complete instructions for alignment, BFO alignment, everything for this radio. Anyway, let's see if we can get on the air with this thing.
All right, it turns on.
Kilo 4, give me your call again.
Yes, Kilo 4, Oscar, Golf, Oscar.
Okay, Kilo 4, Oscar, Golf, Oscar. Okay, I got it. All right, I appreciate the call. I got a couple of minutes to stay here, but the static crashes are getting pretty heavy. Up to about a 7. Anyway, my name is Jim. I'm in Texas, Central Texas, near Waco. Over.
Roger, Roger. The name here is Walt, and I am in southeastern Virginia on the coast here in Norfolk, Virginia. This is actually a kit radio I just built. You're my first QSO on it, so I really appreciate you taking the call.
Okay, all right. I got some QRM, Walt. What's the new radio? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just built one of these micro BitX radios from India here, a little 10-watt radio. Just got it together, and you're the first QSO on it. So I really appreciate you taking the call, and was wondering if you could give me a good, honest audio report on this thing.
Okay, well, first of all, you're 5'8" to 5'9", and he says 10 watts. What's the antenna, over?
The antenna is just a vertical. It's a multi-band vertical. It's called the Sigma Eurocom. It's originally a no radial vertical, but I've got it on top of a metal roof, a flat metal roof, so I've got a pretty good ground plane underneath it.
Okay, well, it's doing good. Now, as far as the audio, it's, I can understand you. I would say it's a little thin, pretty narrow, kind of like a DX audio, but I don't have any problem understanding you, over.
Roger, Roger. Yeah, like I said, first QSO, I'm going to tweak it and play around with this thing. I'm just thrilled that I'm punching through.
That's good, and it's really, for 10 watts, it's really, I hear you very well. Okay, well, congratulations, and glad to be the first contact on it. So, anyway, 73, K4, Oscar, Golf, Oscar, KB5, Wayne.
Okay, thank you so much for the Q-Show. I really appreciate it. 73.
Okay, 73.
How cool is that? Okay. Hey, I'll take it. Hey, so this weekend there is a IARU International HF contest going on. So I'm going to get over on 20 meters now and see if by chance I can luck out and maybe make a DX contact here. Let's give it a shot. Kilo 4 Oscar, Golf Oscar. Roger, Roger, you're 590808. Merci beaucoup. Well, there you go. That's it. The Micro BitX version 6. Cool little radio. I enjoyed it. I got some bugs to probably iron out in it, but that's the cool thing about building a kit. I'm gonna have no problem just tearing this thing apart now and messing around with it, especially at $200. I mean, it's that's not cheap, but it's not exactly expensive either. So I'm gonna tinker with it. I'm probably gonna add a new display. There's some things I want to do to this thing, but it's gonna be my my play around with kit here as the days come up here. I really look forward to doing some mods to this thing and having a good time with it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. And until next time, I'm Walt, K4 OGO 73, my friends.
Hey, Walt, we're glad to have you. Thank you for sharing. That is good stuff. And he does a great video. That is awesome. What he's not saying about that particular rig, just so you know, the 5.9 QSO that he had on 40, it really doesn't put 10 watts out on 40. The other video, had we had a time to see it tonight, would have shown that on 40 meters, it's actually putting out about 4.5 watts. You'll notice when he mentioned his wattage, what was the question the guy in Texas asked him, the very first question? He asked him, what antenna are you using?
Yeah.
So just exactly what we were talking about earlier. You know, he knows the guy is on a QRP radio. So the question is, you're 5.9 here, and he thinks he's using 10 watts. He's actually using 5. You're 5.9 here. He's on 5 watts. Well, what antenna are you using? Antenna. Every time. Antenna. So that is the reoccurring theme for tonight's The World According to Elmer. Now, we've got about 6 or 7 minutes, whatever the station allows us to have.
And you said you had a
subject for tonight.
You can have as much time as you want.
So it's all yours, Mr. Pat.
I was watching TV I was watching the 6 o'clock news. And, of course, we've got this guy that's on Channel 8, which is Fox. It's a Fox network.
Right.
Local news. His name's Andre Bernier, and he was
good guy.
He's an actual ham, and so is his wife. I actually talked to him once. Nice gentleman, but that'll remain another story for another time. Anyway, he's on there talking. He says, the International Space Station is actually going to come up tomorrow morning and tomorrow evening both. He says there's going to be some really good passes of it. And if you look at your monitor there, let me hit the Zoom call thing. He said the best one's probably going to be tomorrow night. He says that the passes that it'll pop above the horizon at about 10:42, and it'll be pretty much directly overhead by 10:45. Well, that got me to thinking. There's actually a radio ham radio repeater on that station, and I've never really tried to connect to it yet. But I think I'm going to set my radio up, and we're going to have a shot at that probably tomorrow night, if I can get home early enough from the meeting.
What you're going to find tomorrow night, I'm reading right off of this application, which if you have an iPhone, you can get this app, and this will give you all of the passes, including the ones tonight, actually, that have the space station will pass tonight again and again and tomorrow. And it will tell you exactly when. But we know that tomorrow night, as an example, at 10:42:17 p.m., the space station will appear in the western sky. It will be at 262 degrees. It will peak at 10:45:18. So that's 3 minutes till it gets to its peak. And that will then at that point, the ISS will be to the northwest, and then the space station will disappear 50 degrees, which is just above north, in fact, in the northeast. And so you can see on the application here that you see when the thing appears, and you see where it leaves. It appears in the southwest and it leaves in the northeast. So it gives you the exact degrees. So you can match this up when you're standing outside and the time has come for the ISS or the space station, whatever you want to call it, to appear. That's pretty handy. And it shows you the elevation on there too, which you were also talking about, Pat.
Yep. I think what...
so there you go.
If you're new to this stuff, if you're new to ham radio, even if you have a police scanner, you can find the frequencies that's going to be listed in this video I'm going to show. And you can probably at least listen to what's going on it. It'll be that type of communication is a little stranger than listening to a regular repeater.
Different.
You're only going to have about 10 or 15, 20, 25 seconds like that in order to make a Qso with somebody. So it's going to be short and very direct. You'll see that in the video. Let's run that thing quick, and then we'll come back and talk about it to wrap this up. Ready?
Oh, let's do it. You're listening to The World According to Elmer.
Are you a radio ham wanting to use the International Space Station's new repeater system? Then stay tuned. I'll tell you how. Welcome to the Ham Radio Junkie with me, Keith. If, like me, you believe the world isn't flat, you'll also accept that there's an International Space Station that's flying around at 5 miles per second above our heads, orbiting the Earth every 90 minutes. And if you're a radio ham, you also know that on board the International Space Station is some great radio equipment that's used to communicate with schools, colleges, and educate children about space and also amateur radio. There's also other amateur radio equipment on board, such as a repeater system. Basically, it turns the International Space Station into a great satellite that we can use to communicate over vast distances. And this is it. The repeater is based on a Kenwood VHF UHF radio with crossband repeater function. It's available to all radio amateurs who fall within the footprint of the International Space Station as it's passing over. It requires very little power to operate it, and also some very, very simple equipment. So how does it work? Well, it's very similar to any other repeater. The only exception is, on this one, you transmit on 2 meters on 145 megahertz and receive on 70 centimeters on 437 megahertz. So I can hear you saying, that's great, Keith, I want to get on there, but what do I need? Well, you need a way of tracking the International Space Station to know where it is. You need a dual band FM radio, VHF and UHF, or you need a VHF and a UHF FM radio. You need some sort of antenna, and then you also need to know your location. I'll tell you why in a minute. So how do we track the International Space Station? There are various programs available, but for me, visit amsat.org.ar, the Argentinian branch of AMSAT. AMSAT help radio amateurs around the world communicate via satellite, and they've got a web-based satellite tracking program that you can use to track any satellite and also the International Space Station. So let's look at radios. Any radio capable of transmitting on 2 meters FM and receiving 70 centimetres on FM would do absolutely fine. And to keep things simple, what you need to do is program 5 channels into your radio with the frequencies shown on the chart. You'll notice that the receive frequency changes by 10 kilohertz. This is due to a thing called the Doppler Effect, and it only affects the receive signal as the transmit signal is negligible. Because of the Doppler Effect, we need to shift the channels up and down during the pass of the space station to make sure we continue to hear the stations that are coming in on the downlink of the repeater. So let's talk about antennas. Don't use a rubber antenna there on your handheld. It's not going to work. The best option is a beam. This is a handheld arrow antenna. It's a 70 centimetre and 2 metre dual band antenna that you can hold in your hand and point at the satellite or the International Space Station. A dual band handheld beam is ideal for work in the International Space Station. And this is Peter, 2M0SQL, who's out and about working satellites with his. There's lots of choice, and here's another one. This is a simple 2 metre and 70 centimetre handheld beam. Failing that, if you've got a dual band collinear or a white stick antenna, you can also use that. It's not ideal, but it will work, although you may not hear the complete pass of the International Space Station. So the last thing you're going to need is to know your grid square. You need this so you can pass it as part of the contact that you make through the International Space Station. The way to find this, if you don't already know it, is visit qrz.com/gridmapper. Put your details in and it will give you a precise grid square for your location. Now, QSOs via satellites and the International Space Station are slightly different to a normal QSO that you'd have on HF. And the reason for this is that the pass of the International Space Station is very, very short. And there may be a lot of people all trying to pass details to other stations and make contact. So the QSO normally is limited to your call sign, the signal strength or readability of the other station, your grid square locator and your name. And that's generally it. This way, lots of stations can make contact in a very, very short amount of time. So there you have it. That's how you work the International Space Station's new repeater. Come to think of it, that's how you can work any of the satellites. Again, look them up via AMSAT UK or any of the other AMSAT branches and go out and have some fun working satellites. If you like my stuff, give me a thumbs up. My name's Keith, my call sign is G0FEA, and I'm the Ham Radio Junkie. I'll catch you next time.
Tonight's The World According to Elmer was the all-English accent, I think he was that. Australian. But
I noticed that.
That's what we were doing tonight, folks. We were headed over the ocean to the other part of the world.
Over the pond.
So you're going to make this. You're going to make a shot at it tomorrow night, huh?
I'm going to set it up and see if it works. Who knows? I got to get the. I've already got the VHF frequency in there because I usually try to listen to there every once in a while, but I got to set those 5 UHF and those UHF frequencies up. I should be able to hit it. I've got a diamond 24-foot antenna on the roof. It's a dual band, so I should be able to hear it.
I was able to get the space station last year from my house here, and I got them on my Yaesu 2980R, which is an 80-watt old school radio, 2-meter radio. Excuse me, I didn't use the 2980R for that particular contact because it didn't have UHF. I used the other UHF radio that I had, the ICOM, and at any rate, the 7100, the ICOM 7100, and I used a fiberglass UHF VHF stick that is on the top of my house that is about, I don't know, it's about 4 feet tall. And like he said on the video, he said that's not ideal, but I didn't have any trouble, Pat.
Yeah, I've got. Like
I will tell you this. My impression was there were a whop of people up at 3:30 in the morning.
I believe
there was a ton of people trying to call in.
I believe that, and I'd like to be one of them that make a contact to this thing this time. We'll see what happens.
Well, we'll know because you're going to have to report back next week on how your results went.
If I remember to get the camera out of the car, I'll take and record it if I can.
There you go. Have the missus go with you. You can do all the contacting, and she can video it on the camera for us.
Yeah, that'll work.
It'll be all good.
All right.
So we'll see how this is going to come out next week. So make sure you're back, guys, and you join us for next week's program. This is The World According to Elmer on the Crooked River Radio Network. I am Jerry Sorensen, KG8RRY. That is our Elmer sitting over there in the blue shirt tonight. N8O Quickie Pizza, QP. And we have been glad to have you here tonight. Also, you're the star of the show. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week right here on the Crooked River. Until then, 73. Have a great week.
73, y'all. Thanks for listening. See you next week.
We hope you enjoyed this presentation of the Crooked River Radio Network. See you again soon.